Hello everyone, today I am back to teach you everything you need to know about the Fire Trailblazer in terms of his or her light cone, best relic set, the value of their Eidolons, and anything else you'd need to know. If you didn't already know, the Trailblazer is one of the first but also best star rail characters in the game. To be clear, I am not referring to the main character's alter ego who uses a bat and is kinda meh, but rather the fire preservation tank character who has an infinite amount of utility and usability at any point in time. Yes, the Trailblazer is not a limited, unobtainable 5-star, but that sure doesn't stop them from acting like one. The reason for that is because there are no available true tanks to prevent or mitigate damage to your team, which immediately places the Trailblazer high on the list of characters to invest in. Of course though guys, this isn't about whether or not you should invest in this character, you should by the way. This is just a guide about how to make your Trailblazer the absolute best that you can. But before we get into that today, I just want to remind you guys that I stream all of my characters, runs, builds, experiments, tier lists, answer questions, etc, and chat about the game on Twitch and on Discord pretty regularly, so stop by if you have a sec. Let's get into it. Light cones. For 3 stars, Amber or Defense are decent since both have a way of providing sustain or more tankiness to the Trailblazer without being too conditional. 32% defense at base, that is doubled at sub 50%, is by no means bad, and honestly, healing 30% of your max HP per ultimate cast is not bad either. In most cases though, 3 stars are easily replaceable by a great light cone that you can buy from the Forgotten Hall, select from Nameless Glory, etc. However, in this case, the 4 stars that are available through non-swiping means are not the best that you can get among the 4 stars. Day 1 of My New Life is not a bad choice, and neither is We Are Wildfire when you consider the damage mitigation and resistances that both provide, but both suffer from one major flaw compared to the Trailblazer's best light cones, and that is the fact that they all operate under the assumption that you're going to be hit by the enemy. Landau's Choice, the best 4-star option for the Trailblazer, provides your meat shield with a reduction in damage in addition to an increased chance to be hit. Now while the team-wide damage resistances may be useful in some scenarios or seem generally appealing, the ability to avoid having your DPS or supports be hit is just simply too valuable to ignore. As opposed to Day 1 of My New Life or We Are Wildfire, where you are praying that everyone doesn't lose HP, Landau's Choice lets you focus healing and mitigating damage on one source. And beyond the 4 stars, Gepard's light cone is everything you could ever wish from Landau's Choice and more. Having the increased defense value from the 3 stars combined with the increased chance to be hit of the 4 stars is just simply too much to give up assuming you have it. But of course, if you don't have Landau's Choice or a Moment of Victory, it is equally as acceptable to use any of the aforementioned 3 or 4 stars until you find them. Something that I forgot to mention earlier but will probably become much more relevant in this next section is just how much value you get from the Trailblazer regardless of investment. And to further prove this point is the Trailblazer's traces. Like other supportive, non-damage dealing characters in Star Rail, the Trailblazer certainly gains value from the stat bonuses or bonus abilities that are in the trace tree, but prioritizing getting these traces to max is by no means necessary. Speaking from personal experience, the Trailblazer has done terrific in terms of breaking shields and absorbing damage. And for me, I simply went with the upgrades to their base stats and upgrading the 2 traces that provide them with increased damage mitigation or shielding. It is important for me to mention that the bonus abilities are definitely more useful if you're struggling with them dying or your team is taking too much damage, but I didn't invest in them until about Memory Chaos Floor 5. On a side note, I did notice some people try to invest fully in the Trailblazer as a damage dealer, but I don't really think it's that worth it. It could be good for breaking barriers on fire enemies, but I don't think that the limited energy you have is best used on trying to break a shield faster. Finally, just remember that in terms of resources, everyone is limited by time regardless if you're a whale or not, so be careful when using resources since you never know who may need the traces leveled next. The Trailblazer treats their light cone and traces pretty similarly with not much investment being needed to be fully functional. For myself, I am cruising along with my Trailblazer survivability and I still haven't upgraded his glove past +3, his chest beyond +9, his helmet beyond +12, and I really don't want to talk about his ornament sets. Now this is probably a product of the Trailblazer being able to constantly shield and the innate resistances that they gain from their light cone, but it is pretty difficult for the Trailblazer to die when the enemy is on a round-the-clock provoke cycle. Once a moderate being about 20 to 30, amount of effect hit rate is invested, or for when the enemy has no effect resistance, this character simply takes no damage. Combine this with a healer, which is the average pairing with the Trailblazer, and you have one unstoppable tanking machine. But back to the sets. 4-piece Knight of Purity Palace is without question the best set for the Trailblazer since they scale with defense percent, but once again this character shines with very little. As a result, taking 2 pieces from a set like Guard of Weathering Snow with 2 pieces of the Purity Palace can definitely work since you're primarily focusing on the tankiness of the character. Furthermore, with the ornament set, I could definitely see Trailblazers use Beelzebub of the Architects just for the defense, but there's honestly no beating Fleet of the Ageless when it just gives you bonus HP and further increases all allies' attack. Now on to what really matters when it comes to characters' relics, which are the main stats you choose to run. The Trailblazer's boot is pretty much always going to be speed since you simply gain so much value from being able to reapply shields with your basic skill and provoke when consuming skill points, but there's definitely an interesting discussion to have about what the other main stats could be. For the body, planar sphere, and link rope, HP percent or defense percent can definitely be usable in early or budget situations. Though you may not gain the same value when using an HP percent main stat piece on a defense percent scaling character, you may find value in simply having enough HP to survive an enemy's hits. Furthermore, when it comes to the link rope, energy regen rate can arguably prove more useful than a defense or HP percent main stat, considering the value of more ultimates and therefore more shielding, but sticking to the more defensive main stats will guarantee more impactful shields and less risk of dying when getting hit. In terms of substats, you can pretty much guess what kind of substats you want on the Trailblazer since they shine so brightly as a tank, but in case you were wondering, HP percent or defense percent depending on what you decided to have as a main stat and speed are best. Break effect to apply more impactful burns or shield breaks is also certainly an option, but the final stats that you may see some value from are effect hit rate and effect resistance should you find yourself not wanting to be debuffed or wanting to guarantee their provoke. In general, I wouldn't suggest investing in these 2 stats as the main stats for your relic pieces, but I would be lying if I said it didn't feel good to be able to crowd control most enemies or resist being crowd controlled myself with a moderate amount of either stat. All in all, this is definitely a character that you build secondarily when you're farming for your DPS sets or have extra gear to slap on, but I definitely do not see a huge amount of value in farming specifically for them unless there is another great set that you can farm simultaneously. Space Station set and Fleet of the Ageless as an example. When it comes to Eidolons, the Trailblazer is a special case since you either receive the Eidolons for free or have to buy it in a store as opposed to pulling them. But they are good, not groundbreaking, considering most of them are either upgrades to the raw damage or free levels in their skill, basic attack, ultimate, etc, etc. I could go into more depth when it comes to the value of each Eidolon, but honestly the best value we'll find is the increase in talent and skill level on Eidolon 3 and starting with Magma 4 at the start of combat. There honestly isn't much else to discuss since, again, you get them for free, but in case you're wondering you were going insane, you do not actually have the ability to gain Eidolon 6 on the Trailblazer at this moment. The Trailblazer really has it all when it comes to being valuable in team compositions. For starters, everyone has them, and they're always available and an option, but in addition to this, their kit is something you'd expect from a limited one-time only tank. Provoke, shielding, tanking, all in addition to being a barrier breaker, is terrific value and is probably what you'll end up running when you encounter difficult content. Although I typically insert a free-to-play composition here that works well with the Trailblazer, the honest truth is that you can pick anything so long as you have a damage dealer. In some cases, the traditional healer, tank, DPS plus flex can even be manipulated to have something like the Trailblazer plus 3 DPS since they're super flexible. However, for the average progression clearing team composition, Natasha, the Fire Trailblazer, and a combination of either 2 DPS or 1 DPS in a character like March is perfect depending on the situation. So Natasha, Fire Trailblazer, Serval, and Don Hung, or the Fire Trailblazer, Natasha, March 7th, and Don Hung can definitely prove effective in clearing any sort of content. Between the constant provoking, tanking, cleansing, and protection of your DPS with the Fire Trailblazer plus Natasha, pretty much everything is possible. It should be noted that the Trailblazer does lack sometimes when it comes to speedruns, since they don't really offer much compared to some others, but that is hardly a reason to not run the Trailblazer as a safety net. But in exchange, the Trailblazer is near mandatory for any difficult progression-based content, which means that all simulated universe, first-time runs, or memory chaos floors will inevitably force you to use the Fire Trailblazer anyways. As a final note on them and their effectiveness overall, he or she also receives an insane amount of value when paired with March 7th, who can truly mitigate and control any character into hitting your meat shield at all times, so make sure to check that pairing out as well. With that, I hope you guys learned or gained something from this guide. I truly believe that it's crazy for the first character we get in Star Rail to be one of the game's best, but of course I wouldn't complain considering the fact that the Fire Trailblazer constantly carries me through difficult content and is a great flex in pretty much anything. That's gonna be it for this video though guys. Make sure to like, turn on the notification bell, subscribe, let me know what you think of the Fire Trailblazer in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next one guys. Bye bye.